Separation from Canada. It is something that has come up since the Liberals were given another term in government in last month's federal election, particularly in Saskatchewan and Alberta, with some frustrated with what they view as out-of-touch policies around energy and the environment created in Ottawa that don't benefit the West.
Western Canada is making a move right now that most of the country isn't even paying attention to. And what makes this so significant is that it's not just Alberta anymore. It's not just one province throwing a tantrum about federal policy. This is coordinated. This is organized. This is two provinces moving in lockstep towards something that could fundamentally reshape Canada as we know it. Saskatchewan and Alberta just aligned their separatist movements officially. And I'm going to break down exactly what's happening here step by step, because this is not some fringe political noise that's going to fade away after news cycles. This is real infrastructure being built brick by brick. This is legal frameworks being activated simultaneously. This is a timeline that's already in motion with specific milestones. But real quick, before we get into this, if you want to stay ahead of what's actually happening in Canada without the mainstream media filter, make sure you're subscribed to this channel. Hit that subscribe button right now because we're covering the stories that matter. And check if you're actually subscribed. Your subscription actually helps us keep doing this. All right, let's get into what just happened. December 11th, 2025. Saskatchewan Prosperity Project is holding a town hall. President Brad Williams is speaking. Alberta Prosperity Project representatives sitting in the front row. Right now in Canada, it's a sinking ship. And if we don't take our lifeboat and throw it out and get off while we can, we're going down with the ship. That's Brad Williams. Saskatchewan and Alberta separatist groups are officially aligned. Synchronized town halls. Same messaging, same timeline. This is coordination. After COVID and through a lot of mistrust, I'm interested in looking at ways we can become more resourceful, more independent. Jordan Clark, regular attendee. These are real people showing up. May 2025, Alberta passes Bill 54. Signature requirement dropped from approximately 600,000 down to just 177,000. That's 10% of voters who participated in the last election. Collection period extended from 90 days to 120 days. Think about what that means. Alberta just made it 6 times easier to trigger a referendum. 6 times. That's not a minor procedural adjustment. That's completely opening the floodgates to citizen-initiated referendums on any topic. Saskatchewan is preparing their own version right now. A laundry list of concerns: equalization, canola tariffs, immigration. Dwayne Cameron, Saskatchewan Prosperity Project Vice President. Same grievances Alberta separatists talk about. Coordinated messaging. Alberta Sovereignty within a United Canada Act. Passed 2022. Still active. Lets Alberta refuse federal laws deemed unconstitutional. Saskatchewan First Act. Also 2022. Same function. Both provinces can defy federal authority on resources, environment regulations. These aren't symbolic, they're using them right now. Alberta Prosperity Project, 300 in person, 600 online per event. Over 40 events in 2 months. That's 900 people every event. Serious grassroots organization. Saskatchewan replicating the exact model. Polling numbers from Angus Reid Institute, May 2025. This is one of Canada's most respected polling firms. Alberta, 36% support independence. Saskatchewan, 34% support independence. Combined population of both provinces, 5.8 million people. Do the math. That's over 2 million people across 2 provinces who actively support leaving Canada right now. But here's the number that should really terrify Ottawa. 19% of Albertans would definitely vote to leave. 15% in Saskatchewan say the same. Those are the hardcore supporters. Those are the people who are absolutely committed. And in any referendum, those are the people who actually show up to vote while others stay home. Let me explain why Quebec's playbook matters so much here, because this is exactly what Alberta and Saskatchewan are doing right now. Quebec spent 50 years threatening to leave Canada. Quebec held 2 major referendums. Quebec never actually left. But Quebec got absolutely everything they wanted from Ottawa. Immigration control? Quebec has full control. Tax collection? Quebec runs its own entire system separate from Canada Revenue Agency. Pension plan? Quebec has its own, the only province that does. Distinct society recognition? Quebec got it written into federal legislation. Special status? Quebec has it in practice, if not formally in the Constitution. How did Quebec manage to get all of that? By keeping one foot out the door for 5 decades. By threatening separation credibly enough that Ottawa had to negotiate. by making federal politicians absolutely terrified that Quebec might actually vote yes in a referendum and destroy Canada. And now watch what's happening. Alberta and Saskatchewan are running the exact same playbook, but they're doing it together, with twice the economic leverage, simultaneously. Combined GDP, $424 billion. That's 18% of Canada's economy, 81% of oil exports. If they left, Canada loses 1/5 of economy overnight. Ottawa cannot afford this, which means they have to negotiate. December 5th, 2025. Alberta judge rules referendum question unconstitutional, violates charter and treaty rights. December 11th, 6 days later. Alberta passes Bill 14, removes constitutional restrictions, transfers approval power from Chief Electoral Officer to Justice Minister, a political appointee. The court says it is unconstitutional. Alberta rewrites rules to allow it anyway. 1 hour after royal assent, Alberta Prosperity Project files new application. Do you agree that Alberta shall cease to be a province in Canada and become an independent state? New question. And now the Justice Minister, who works for Premier Smith, approves it. Court ruling December 5th. Legislation passed December 11th. New application was filed 1 hour later. Well-organized operation executing a plan. Opposition exists. Thomas Lukasuk launched Forever Canadian petition. Got 456,000 signatures. Verified October 2025. But Alberta Prosperity Project only needs 177,000. Opposition is larger, threshold is lower. First Nations issues remain a major constitutional roadblock. Treaty 6, 7, and 8 chiefs filed as interveners against Bill 14. They're strongly opposed to any separation. This is a treaty country. Any talk of separation is really insanity because there is no pathway to separation.
So what has to actually be done in order for separation to happen?
Well, under the Constitution of Canada, one province has no right to leave unilaterally. So even if there were a referendum that purported to prescribe separation, that would not give the province in which the referendum occurred the legal right to leave.
Chief Troy Knowlton, Pequotty Nation, and his legal argument is solid. Treaties were signed between First Nations and the Crown of Canada, not provincial governments. If Alberta or Saskatchewan leave Canada, what happens to those treaties? Do treaties become void? Do First Nations renegotiate with a new country? Do they get a say in whether separation happens? Nobody has answers to these massive legal questions. First Nations leaders have been clear. We will fight this in court. We will block any referendum that threatens treaty rights. We will not allow separation without our consent. That's a constitutional roadblock Alberta and Saskatchewan cannot easily overcome. But Bill 14 passed anyway, despite First Nations opposition, despite court warnings, despite constitutional concerns. Economic integration with the United States is already happening. Alberta delegations meeting with Texas oil executives, Saskatchewan exploring grain export routes straight to U.S. markets, bypassing Canadian infrastructure completely. Reports exist, unconfirmed but widely discussed, of something called Project Buffalo, supposedly a U.S. initiative to integrate Western Canadian oil directly into American energy grids. No Canadian federal involvement, no Canadian regulators. Direct connection. Is Project Buffalo officially real? Hard evidence is lacking. But the fact that people in Alberta and Saskatchewan discuss it seriously tells you something. They're thinking about economic integration with the United States before any political separation happens. If Alberta and Saskatchewan start economically integrating with the U.S. before any referendum, it makes actual separation much easier, makes the economic transition less scary, makes logistics more manageable. You're building economic infrastructure for separation before you even hold the vote. January or February 2026. Alberta Prosperity Project begins collecting signatures. They need 177,000. They have 120 days. Is that achievable? Absolutely. They've been holding town halls for months. Over 60,000 members. They claim 250,000 online pledges. If even half convert to signatures, they're over the threshold. Assume they hit 177,000 by June 2026. Elections Alberta verifies. Then Alberta government must hold a referendum, October 2026. That's the likely timeline for Alberta independence referendum, less than a year from now. And if Alberta holds a referendum in October 2026, Saskatchewan watches. Sees turnout, sees results, sees Ottawa's response. If Alberta votes yes, even narrow 52%, 53%, Saskatchewan holds their own within months. That's the coordination. That's why alignment matters. They're moving together. This is not just about whether Alberta and Saskatchewan leave Canada. This is about whether Ottawa can hold the country together. This is about whether federalism works. This is about whether provinces that feel economically exploited can force Ottawa to listen. Alberta and Saskatchewan claim they contribute $20 billion annually to equalization and receive almost nothing back. They claim federal regulations cost them $200 billion in lost investment. They claim Ottawa blocked pipelines that would have created tens of thousands of jobs. Are all claims accurate? Some are exaggerated. But politically, what matters is enough people in these provinces believe they're true. And belief drives political action. If you believe Ottawa is stealing from you, if you believe federal regulations are destroying your economy, if you believe Central Canada treats you like a colony, then separation starts sounding rational. That's what's happening. That's why polling numbers are what they are. That's why town halls pull crowds. Here's the bottom line. Saskatchewan Prosperity Project and Alberta Prosperity Project are officially coordinated. Synchronized town halls across both provinces, same infrastructure, same legal frameworks, same timeline. Bill 54 made referendums achievable in Alberta, dropped threshold from 600,000 to 177,000 signatures. Bill 14 removed constitutional barriers by transferring approval power to political appointees. Alberta Prosperity Project is starting signature collection in January or February 2026. A referendum is likely in October 2026. Saskatchewan is watching every move. Saskatchewan is preparing their own legislation. Saskatchewan will follow if Alberta votes yes. This is not hypothetical. This is happening right now. The infrastructure is built. The timeline is set. The legal frameworks are active. The town halls are pulling crowds. The polling shows millions of supporters across both provinces. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel because we're going to be covering every single development in this story as it unfolds. We're going to break down every court case as it happens. We're going to analyze every poll that comes out. We're going to explain what each development means and why it matters for Canada's future. Because this is the kind of story that could fundamentally reshape this country. This is the kind of story where you need someone to cut through all the noise and political spin and explain what's actually happening on the ground. That's exactly what we do here. That's why you need to be subscribed. That's why you need to share this video with everyone you know. The coordination between these provinces is real and documented. The timeline is already in motion. And we're watching something absolutely unprecedented happen in Canadian politics right now. This story is far from over. Stay tuned.